My name is Manoj Raju, and I'm the elected public defender of San Francisco. Thank you to all of you for being here today. A big thank you to the Free SF Immigrant Rights Coalition for co-organizing this press conference with us. Today, we've all come together to celebrate a court victory by the incredible, skilled public defenders in our office. And we're also here to talk about the context of this victory. How law enforcement in San Francisco has targeted and scapegoated immigrants. This tactic has resulted in the double victimization of some of our immigrant clients who've been arrested for drug-related offenses when they themselves are the victims of a form of human trafficking called labor trafficking. We have members from our office and community leaders here who would talk about real solutions that address the issue with compassion, humanity, and logic. I want to stress that in my office, we're very, very cognizant of the overdose crisis in San Francisco that's led to so many tragic deaths, including some who are our clients and some who are our clients' family members. We know families of those who have died, who are hurting and grieving, and we want to honor their lives by working towards actual solutions that work. Last month, a jury made up of everyday San Franciscans found our client, a young man from Honduras who had been charged with selling drugs in the Tenderloin, not guilty. Yeah. This young man's defense team put forward what's called an affirmative defense under California law, which holds that if a person is a victim of human trafficking and they commit a crime while being coerced under threat of harm, they should be found not guilty of those crimes. There have been 7 of these human trafficking trials over the last 2 years here in San Francisco. The defense teams have all been women-led, and let me let's give it up. And let me tell you about the outcomes so far. Only 2 of the juries have found our clients guilty. 4 juries have deadlocked and hung, and now a jury has fully acquitted our client. What that means is that 5 out of 7 times the prosecution has not been able to secure a conviction. To our knowledge, this is the first acquittal based on a human trafficking defense in the Bay Area, and likely this is the first in the entire state. And we have to keep in mind that these defenses, unfortunately, aren't put forward as often as they should be, because most of the times the people charged are afraid to put forward that defense. But when it has been put forward, the juries are very receptive because they know it's the truth. Now, why is this significant? See, if jurors are allowed to hear about the horrific experiences of our clients in these cases, the horrific experience that our clients have had to endure, the threats they've endured, juries will recognize the reality of labor trafficking. They will consider that putting such victims in cages creates more harm, not less. San Franciscan prosecutors, however, they don't want juries to hear our client stories. That's why federal agencies have been showing up over the past year at this courthouse to arrest our clients and put our clients on a fast track to deportation, depriving them of due process.
Shame.
So in light of what these trials have demonstrated and the injustices of what's happening and the targeting of immigrants, we have several demands of the district attorney's office, which has prosecuted these cases and colluded with the feds to deport our clients. We demand the district attorney's office sign a T visa or a U visa crime victim certification so that our client, who the jury has found to be a labor trafficking survivor, can obtain immigration relief and the right to work in the legal labor market.
Yes. Yes.
We demand that the district attorney's office take seriously labor trafficking claims and that they treat labor trafficking survivors the same way they've evolved to treat sex trafficking survivors. We demand that the district attorney's office stop colluding with the feds to keep state court juries from hearing our clients' stories, from hearing their truths, and comply with our local and state sanctuary laws. And we demand that the district attorney's office actually do their job to protect victims and stop offering coercive plea deals that are putting our clients in harm's way with ICE detention and deportation. To kick this off, I am excited to introduce you to Deputy Public Defender Elizabeth Camacho, one of our amazing felony unit managers, a proud immigrant herself who has led the defense team on our human trafficking trials.
Buenos dias. Good morning, everyone. I am a proud immigrant that came here with a dream to help other people, to help other immigrants. And when I started seeing the human tragedy that was happening here in San Francisco, where immigrants who are victims of forced labor, coercion, threats, were being treated as scapegoats instead of victims and survivors, I knew that we had to make their voices heard. That the law would not allow that. That our office would not permit that. That somehow we had to listen to them. Find a way for them to express what was happening, to give them a voice, and to not continue to silence them. Today, I could not be more proud of our client, whose name we are not releasing because he could still face a threat to his life, threats to his family. It was very courageous for him to talk about his experience in court. And now he is here trying to work hard and find stability in his life and reach the dream that all of us immigrants try when we come and we take our trek and we leave our countries and we leave everything and we come here to America, to San Francisco, and we say, we are gonna make a life for ourselves. When we don't speak English and when we learn and dream of the day when we sit at a podium and ask that you treat us fairly, that you see our humanity, and that America is for everyone. America is for everyone. And the juries, when you tell them your story, they will listen. And that despite the district attorney wanting to turn a blind eye, cover their ears, put their head in the sand, and say that they are criminals, that they are the problem, dehumanizing and demonizing, that when you tell a jury a story of survival, a truth, that they will listen, and they did, with a resounding not guilty. Juries will not rubber stamp false convictions. They will not. We will not, as San Franciscans, allow ICE to come into our community and take our people who make our community so great. We are demanding today that the district attorney do her job, that she listen when we say that our clients are being coerced, that they are being trafficked, that they are being victimized. That instead of forcing forward a trial that they cannot win and have not won, that they do the right thing, that they sign U visa certifications, recognizing that this is a form of coerced labor, that they are victims of crime, that the law, that her duty, that her job is to protect every San Franciscan, not just the ones she wants the law to apply to.
Yes.
We demand that she sign a T visa certification for our client who so bravely told his story. The loudest way to support the people who have suffered, who have been caged with an invisible cage, is to sign these certifications and stop persecuting them and recognize them as human beings, as survivors, and as warriors who deserve to have what we all want to have here, the beautiful American dream. We need law enforcement to stop targeting, law enforcement in San Francisco to stop targeting young immigrants with drug crackdowns. We need the prosecutors to keep ICE out of our city, and we want our survivors to be treated just like other survivors of crime and get the services that they need, the resources that they need, instead of being dehumanized and demonized in the media. We demand that Brooke Jenkins follow her oath to protect the most vulnerable members of our community and stop offering coercive immigration unsafe plea deals and accept the fact that human trafficking is here, that her community is being victimized, and that she needs to come out and protect them instead of charging them with crimes, keeping them in jail, and victimizing them. And I just thank all of you for being here and keep supporting us. We are a beautiful immigrant community, a beautiful San Francisco, and we are warriors. Now I'd like to introduce the lead attorney for the case that obtained the first not guilty verdict, Deputy Public Defender Kathleen Natividad.
I want to tell all of you about our client, a 27-year-old young man who survived a harrowing journey from Honduras into the United States and was coerced, who was forced to sell drugs on our streets by the cartels. Our client was born into poverty. In a small pueblo, a small little town in Honduras, where his family all still lives. He's a child of a mother, a father, has two younger sisters, and a niece who all still live in Honduras. At only 8 years old, Our client had to quit school, 8 years old. Had to drop out of school to work to help his family. I told him it will take about $10,000 US dollars to get to the United States. A young 17-year-old boy who had to drop out of school at 8 years old, whose family did not have TV, did not have the internet, did not know what really is happening here in the United States, in desperation followed this older man. Contrary to what many of you may have read in the Chronicle here recently in San Francisco, these are examples of inside of our client's home in Honduras. Cinder block, no windows, no doors, no plumbing. This is how he grew up. And this is how his family continues to live. This is how most of our clients' homes in Honduras look. Not what you have seen in the Chronicle. So when our client met this older man who told him it will be easy to get a job in the United States, it will be easy to pay me back, it will be easy to get a job and care for your family in Honduras, he went. Our client has never been on a plane, a train, a bus at this time. He had never left his town. And this older man took him, paid for every portion of his journey to get here to the United States. He had no phone, he had no savings, he had no money, and he knew nobody during this journey. During this journey, he had to go travel on a bus to Guatemala, into a car with a stranger, and keep following this man through Guatemala, across the border, and through Mexico, where he had to take the train that is commonly known as Bestia. La Bestia. Many of you guys know what that is. This is not a passenger train where our client had a ticket, got into the train, sat down in a chair, and chilled in the air conditioning. This is a cargo train where our client and many other immigrants have to run next to, jump onto the train, climb up to the top of the roof, and hold on for their life. Our client survived this journey. Our client witnessed many people die, many people lose limbs, and many people become victims of violent crime during this journey. When he got to the United States, he was forced to sell drugs. He was arrested various times. And he did not tell the police. And that is because he did not trust the police. Our clients, the immigrants from countries like Honduras do not trust the police. Because in countries like Honduras, The police, the government, they are working with the gangs, the cartels. So he took those arrests, he took his punishments over and over, only to continue being trafficked by the cartels, continue being forced to sell drugs. I want to thank our jurors, some of who are here today, who showed our client that they believe him, that there are people in this city, this county, who want to help him. We appreciate our jurors who made it clear to the district attorney that our client is a human being that needs to be recognized as a vulnerable person. So in closing, I want to pass along a note of gratitude from my client, who appreciates the jury's consideration of what he has survived. And of his desire to move his life in a positive direction and become the member of society that he was meant to be. I'll be playing a recording of a message in Spanish from our client, and then I'll translate it.
Hola, mi nombre. Y le quiero dar las gracias a todos los que están presentes y por enseñarme, darme su apoyo. Pero primero quiero darle las gracias a la jueza por haber escuchado mi historia y haberme dejado testificar. También quiero agradecerle de todo corazón a los miembros de jurado quienes escucharon lo que yo tenía que decir y escucharon cuando les pedí que me ayudaran y me ayudaron. Gracias. Espero que después de hoy la fiscal de San Francisco escuche mi súplica y firme los papeles para yo obtener una visa y así puedo estar libre finalmente y obtener una manera de trabajar, de vivir libre y de cumplir el sueño de ayudar a mi familia. Gracias.
Hello, my name is, and I want to thank everyone who is present and for showing me and giving me your support. But first, I want to thank the judge for listening to my story and allowing me to testify. I also want to sincerely thank the jury members who listened to what I had to say and listened when I asked them to help me. And they helped me. Thanks. I hope that after today, the San Francisco prosecutor listens to my plea and signs the paper so I can get a visa and finally be free and find a way to work, to live freely, and to fulfill the dream of helping my family. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. I have an idea. Before listening to anyone who proposes a policy about how to use draconian measures to either cage or deport a whole group of people, that anyone actually have a conversation with members of that community, or at least listen to someone who has.
Okay, we're gonna chant first here. Bringing up Carolyn here with me. Thank you all so much for being here today. Thank you, Kathleen, for those remarks, and also to your brave client. So chant 1, for those with the chant sheet, chant 1. When immigrants' rights are under attack, what do? Stand up, fight back, okay? Ready? When immigrant rights are under attack, what do? Stand up, fight back. When immigrant rights are under attack, what do? Stand up, fight back. One more time, as loud as possible. When immigrant rights are under attack, what do? Stand up, fight back. Thank you.
Lindsay Morrow, Senior Staff Attorney at Justice at Last, a legal practice that focuses on assisting survivors of human trafficking.
Hello everyone, my name is Lindsay Marum and I am a Senior Staff Attorney with Justice at Last. We're a nonprofit legal service provider that provides free, comprehensive legal services to survivors of trafficking in the Bay Area. We have had the privilege of working with and on behalf of many survivors of all forms of labor trafficking. Unfortunately, through this work, we have seen up close how difficult it is for many survivors of trafficking to access justice, particularly survivors of labor trafficking. Generally, the identification of trafficking survivors is still too rare, and labor trafficking survivors have a particularly difficult time with being identified due to lack of education about what trafficking is and lack of information about resources that can help survivors of trafficking stabilize after the trafficking. When you have a labor trafficking survivor that's criminalized as a result of the actions their trafficker forced them to take, which unfortunately is all too common in what we saw in this case, it exponentially decreases their chances of being identified as a survivor and being able to access stabilizing resources. As a result, and accordingly, we are heartened by the jury's identification and validation of the survivor's experience through their verdict of not guilty in this specific case. We are encouraged and applaud the San Francisco Public Defender's Office's use of the human trafficking affirmative defense to help survivors of sex and labor trafficking escape the vicious cycle of injustice when they are criminalized for the actions their trafficker forces them to take in and sustain a criminal record. When human trafficking survivors sustain a criminal record as a result of their criminalization due to the trafficking, it poses barriers to legitimate employment, immigration relief, and other benefits, and this makes them vulnerable to being re-trafficked. We commend the continued use of the human trafficking affirmative defense, and we urge further collaboration to better identify all survivors of human trafficking so we can best assist all survivors of trafficking access justice. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Francisco Ugarte, the manager of our immigration unit, a unit that provides vital representation to immigrants who are caged in detention.
Buenos dias, San Francisco! It is a beautiful city with beautiful people, and it is a sanctuary city. I have some remarks for the federal government today, but before I do that, I would like to make a statement, tell a story written by my client who couldn't be here today in large part due to the fear of this justice system that put him through hell. My name is Alex. I grew up in El Salvador. When I was 16, I was beaten severely by gang members because I refused to join them. I was nearly killed, lost an eye, and was left unconscious. I fled El Salvador in 2014 after continuing to receive death threats and found a home in San Francisco with my mother. I've had good times and bad times in this city, but I couldn't get trauma out of my mind. I became homeless, and I struggled to survive, and I started using fentanyl. Last year, I was arrested by the San Francisco Police Department but my case was dropped. But then, a few days later, I was arrested by federal police in the Tenderloin. The federal government dropped my case there, too. But even though they dropped my case, I was transferred to ICE. After my charges were dismissed, an ICE agent took me into custody from the Santa Rita County Jail, and I was transferred to Nevada. I was shocked, terrified, because I knew I'd be a dead man if I went back to El Salvador. But I found a lawyer, and I was able to win my immigration case. I now have a work permit, but I know not everyone is so lucky, and I hope no one has to go through what happened to me. This is the story of many people in our community, victims, survivors, who are treated harshly, ruthlessly. Why are we a sanctuary city? We are a city of tolerance, of forgiving, of welcoming, of love. This is the spirit of who we are. And for the last 150 years, the population of San Francisco is between 35 to 50% of foreign-born people. We believe in true public safety, that families remain together, that people are treated equally regardless of their birthplace or immigration status, that people have a right to report a crime without fearing deportation. Deportation is not a public safety tool. We know this, study after study, whether it's the Brennan Center or the Cato Institute, have proven that when there's no collaboration between the prosecutor and police, crime rates go down. Deportation causes crime. But you never know if you paid attention to mainstream headlines. It is an election year, which means we get a barrage of cheap, xenophobic, racist talking points that have no basis in evidence or reality. You may not know that 90% of the fentanyl convictions in the federal government are of US citizens. You may not know that 5 to 10% of Border Patrol officers are involved in some form of corruption. We, in the Immigration Unit and at the Public Defender's Office, are entrusted to protect the civil rights and the constitutional rights of all people in this city, and we will do so. We are not going to tolerate attacks against Sanctuary City, and we will remain a sanctuary city. Thank you.
Thank you, Francisco. Hello, beautiful people. Chant number 2, the classic, the people united will never be defeated. El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. All right. The people united
will never be defeated.
El pueblo unido
Jamás será vencido.
The people united
Will never be defeated.
El pueblo unido
Jamás será vencido.
Thank you.
It's now my pleasure to introduce Larissa Dugan Quadra, Executive Director of the Central American Resource Center, San Francisco, an organization based in the Mission that has been providing a wide array of services to the Central American community since 1986.
Thank you.
Buenos días. What do we want? What do we want? When? When? El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. Good morning. My name is Larissa Dugan Quadra, and I'm the Executive Director of the Central American Resource Center, Carecen San Francisco. Carecen's Second Chance Youth Program and the 2 Removal Clinic team work primarily with system-impacted youth. And when I say systems, I mean criminal and immigration courts. We provide case management, service connection, and system navigation. Also, identity formation, cultural enrichment, and leadership development activities
that are linguistically accessible and culturally responsive. Our youth and trauma-centered approach aims to support successful completion of court mandates and avoid rearrest. Most importantly, we support newcomer youth in achieving their greatest potential, successful social, cultural, civic, and economic integration, and their journey towards productive, healthy adulthood. Programs like Coerced and Second Chance are proven and successful alternatives to incarceration and to reducing violence, and yield a greater return on our SF tax dollars investments in terms of individual and social outcomes. Rejecting political rhetoric, criminalizing sweeping statements and stereotypes that scapegoat Central Americans or people who migrate is a moral imperative. We have to push back on generalizations linking any one nationality, gender, race, or age group to what is a very complex fentanyl public health matter devastating the entire nation. We need to reflect on the impact of toxic narratives and how these may be influencing how we impart justice in San Francisco and the nation. It is no secret that many people forced to migrate leave their countries of origin with no debt, and only after a dangerous migration journey, after extortion, kidnapping, violence, and unimaginable trauma, end up in debt for thousands and thousands of dollars. Debts that, if not paid, can result in death, indentured servitude, and other forms of extortion, exploitation, and violence to victims and/or their families, both here in the U.S. and in our countries of origin. So it is critical that in San Francisco, we do our due diligence to not miss or ignore clear signs related to human exploitation, such as debt bondage, which is a key feature of human trafficking. So I'd like to end by taking some poetic license and by expanding on a positive narrative. The central message of our former district attorney and now presidential candidate: we're not going back. We are not going back to failed wars on drugs. We're not going back to the times when immigrants in San Francisco were afraid to report crimes or instances of domestic violence for fear of deportation. We're not going back to overpopulating our jails. We're not going back to the days when people who migrate were denied due process, dignity, and a second chance. We're not going back to the days of blaming, shaming, or othering any one group, individual, or community. We are moving forward, affirming our sanctuary city values, building trust between local institutions and every member of our city. We are moving forward because we are San Francisco, and that's what we do. Carecen values the work of the Public Defender's Office, your partnership, especially the Immigration Unit and social workers, and congratulate you for your work of changing the world one person at a time. Thank you. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. Our people are beautiful. We have been here since the beginning of the city. We are the economic engine of the city. Stop scapegoating migrants.
Thank you, Larissa. Lastly, we'll hear from a member of the Free SF Coalition, which advocates for community safety, justice, and immigrant rights, and has been a longtime partner with our office. The Free SF Coalition was founded in 2008 to advocate for and defend our sanctuary ordinance that we're incredibly proud of. It's one of the oldest in the country. Fernando Antunes is a social worker at Legal Services for Children.
Thanks so much. So, good morning, everybody. Thank you all for your presence and the energy that you offer here today to the space. My name is Fernando Antunes, and I am a social worker with Legal Services for Children. I'm here today because the unaccompanied youth that we work with aren't able to be here today. So I invite them and their energy and their stories in with me today. We at Legal Services for Children find this kind of collaboration between the DEA and the U.S. Marshals deeply disappointing. As a legal service provider for youth, unaccompanied youth in and around San Francisco, we look to the justice system here inside the immigration context and out to help recognize and actualize only the legal remedies that preserve the safety and well-being of youth like ours. Moments like the ones we find ourselves in compromise those remedies, particularly for the multiply marginalized. Moments of political saber rattling, when elected officials succumb to the kind of carceral logic that many youth we work with have traveled so far to escape. Youth as young as 14 who come here to escape persecution of all stripes. Youth who have lived their lives sensitized to, if not actively aware of, what it means to be problematized. All hands on deck and policies like it make these feelings of shame and hyper-awareness come alive all over again. The irony of out of the frying pan and into the fire doesn't escape us at LSC. It is an irony that pervades our work day in and day out. We at Legal Services for Children have been and are working with youth who have survived perilous journeys to the US to try and help their families. If they make it to the Bay Area, they are targeted by law enforcement for profiling, surveillance, and victimized under the banner of law and order. Singling out immigrants is incredibly racist and provides a very inaccurate picture of the drug trade. In fact, nearly 9 out of 10 of those convicted of trafficking fentanyl are US citizens driving cars and commercial vehicles through legal ports of entry, not undocumented immigrants or asylum seekers. My team, the Detained Immigrant Children's Project, visits recently arrived unaccompanied youth in shelters in and around the Bay Area to offer legal services. In meeting with these youth, we hear stories of communities of people profiled, surveilled, and victimized under the banner of law and order. These youth take out predatory loans, often the only ones available to them, savor the last impressions of the people and places they've called home, and set off on what they hope to be a safe and quick trip. Those that feel comfortable doing so share with us the extortion, ambivalence, and other forms of violence they encounter on their path to the US. Whenever legally relevant and trauma-informed, we ask them if they ever thought to seek help from law enforcement. The response is invariably some variation of, no, they won't protect us. A policy like All Hands on Deck then doubly punishes these youth by re-traumatizing them as they get pushed further into a deportation pipeline that aims to return them to the conditions of economic stress and precarity they're fighting so hard to escape. In our work offering legal orientation to unaccompanied children, we emphasize that there are legal protections afforded to them especially. We explain that they are afforded additional safeguards because implicit in them is the understanding that people in this life stage, at their age, have developmental needs that render them particularly vulnerable to victimization like human trafficking, like labor trafficking, at the hands of people who have no interest in the child's well-being. It is a delicate and sober reminder that no child should need to hear, let alone while they're grappling with the specter of deportation. The thought of having to tell these children that these safeguards are being rolled back and undermined in real time is devastating. In effect, policies like All Hands on Deck trade long-term solutions for short-term reassurance. The kind of reassurance that channels the deeply felt pain and anxieties of a global opioid crisis squarely on the shoulders of immigrant kids. Policies like All Hands on Deck place the burden of a semblance of a solution to this global crisis on San Francisco's kids. So what is the solution? Long term, we need to continue working with these youth to harness their lived experience, their skills, their knowledge for the betterment of our communities, both near and far. Use this knowledge to reimagine community care, unencumbered by the xenophobic fear-mongering and the vitriol that turns neighbor against neighbor and tears working class and communities of color asunder. A rejection of all hands on deck, then, is an invitation to protect all of our communities in San Francisco. It's an invitation that means that our clients, like any other San Francisco youth seeking help with housing, food, safety, don't have to feel like they run the risk of being profiled and piped back into detention for merely existing in places like the Tenderloin district, where a good deal of these resources live. It's an invitation to continue building that kind of San Francisco that is so often lauded with pride to the rest of the world. A San Francisco that seeks out new horizons where others plumb new depths in a race to the bottom of an anti-immigrant spiral of rhetoric and policy. We can and should do right for all of San Francisco. Thank you.
Thank you to all of our amazing speakers who've made it clear that people being forced to sell drugs is a form of human trafficking. But let me make clear, while our clients have experienced dangerous conditions of poverty and violence, I want to emphasize that each one of our clients has their own hopes, their own dreams, their own wisdom for themselves and their families. No one wakes up one day and says their dream is to put themselves in a dangerous situation of street-level sales. Many of these individuals have not been given a choice and have endured horrific circumstances. So rather than criminalizing the survivors of labor trafficking, we ask that survivors receive the support in the form of immigration relief, access to mental health services to address the trauma they've endured, and access to jobs, housing, and education so they can support themselves and their families. My office is actually partnering and working on ways with other community-based organizations to provide the support that we can. But we need more support for real, sustained solutions. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. If people would like to do one-on-one interviews, our speakers are going to be available. But now let's close with one more chant.
Thank you, Manav. Thank you for being our MC. Okay, I'm gonna try a hard chant that was written last night at midnight. And you guys are all gonna really put your heart into this, okay? We're gonna yell for sanctuary, yell for our immigrant community. So chant 5. See if we can make this work. Back up, we want freedom, freedom. Stop the DA ICE collusion. We don't need them, need them. Check that out, right? No rhyme, you know, doesn't make much sense in terms of rhythm, but we can do it. Back up, we want freedom, freedom. Tell ICE we don't need them, okay? We good? Okay, here we go. Back up!
We want freedom, freedom.
Stop the DA ICE collusion!
We don't need them.
Back up!
We want freedom, freedom.
Tell ICE!
We don't need them.
Yes, not bad, right? Okay, 2 more times, go fast. Back up!
We want freedom, freedom.
Stop the DA ICE collusion!
We don't need them.
Back up!
We want freedom, freedom.
Tell ICE!
We don't need them.
Back up!
We want freedom, freedom.
Stop the DA ICE collusion!
We don't need them.
Back up!
We want freedom, freedom.
Tell ICE!
We don't need them.
Yes, thank you guys so much. Thank you. And let's gather on the steps and take a quick photo for our annual calendar to elevate our community partners. Thank you.